Aloha and welcome to Knitted Paradise, where the needles are clicking and the yarn is squishy. My name is Lucia and you can find me on Ravelry and Instagram as Pearl of the Pacific. This is my cat, Pantalaimon. Pan, you want to say hi? Yes. It's a very good kitty, although he's trying to get out the front door. Sometimes we let him out into the hallway, and so he's trying to open the door and not being very successful because he's a cat and he has paws and can't turn a door handle. Anyway, welcome to this knitting podcast. This is about knitting, not about cats. Pan, what are you doing, silly? And I have a lot of knitting to show you today. So welcome to any new viewers and welcome back to any returning viewers. So happy to have you here. Below the conch shell, the only thing I have there is the July knit along, which is going very well. There's lots of people entering things in their favorite color. And if you're new, what we're doing this month is knitting things in our favorite color and posting pictures in the Ravelry group, which is Knitted Paradise Podcast. And also letting us know why it's your favorite color. Maybe you just like that color, or maybe it waffles between two or three colors, which happens to me a lot. I tend to, gravitate toward one color or another depending on the day or the week or the time of day. It kind of depends. Anyway, so great. Thank you for posting all of your finished objects. It's been very cool to see all of them. So that's it for announcements. Next, we have On the Island. I have a lot of things. Actually, no, not that many, but there's been a lot of progress in the things. So we'll start with the ones you've seen before. So won't do that one yet. We'll start with the hat. Remember last time I'm kind of self-designing a hat out of Leading Men Fiber Arts Showcase in Spritely Endeavors is the green, and Sandcastle is this like tannish brown. That's pretty good. They're pretty close actually, considering they're green and brown. And yeah, so that's that. And I did a shawl out of these in January, and I wanted to knit a matching hat and matching mittens. So if you remember before, I knit some mittens and now I'm doing a hat. So here it is. Ta-da! So it's going to be a two-sided hat. I think last time you just saw the top of the stripe side. So this is one side, and then it'll be folded. I can kind of put it on for you. So there's two sides of ribbing and a purl ridge, which helps it fold there. So this is what it will kind of look like. So I'm working my way up the leafy, the leafy lace there, which I got, originally I knit Andrea's shawl. And so this is the lace pattern from that shawl that I've now incorporated into the hat because it's the one I want to match it. So, ta-da! Sorry for the camera shaking. The cat just got on the table behind the camera. So, that's that. And it's coming along quite well. The stripes went super fast. The lace is going a little slower, but it's still coming along. Woo! Needle and face. So I'm pretty happy with that. Hi, Pan. You can't sit there. Sorry, apparently this has become the Pan show now. So that's project number 1. Project number 2 is the Gryffindor scarf that I'm knitting for my husband. And remember, I finished mine. Sorry, I'm trying to get the needles out. And ta-da! it's coming along quite well. I think I had that much last time. So there's been a lot of knitting on this. Mainly because it's just stockinette in this round, so I just kind of knit. I've been taking this to work and doing it during meetings because I don't really have to pay attention to it. I just have to count how many maroon rows are in between. Hi Pan, is this all of a sudden very interesting to you? Anyway, so that's been cranking along. Hopefully I'll finish that faster than I finished mine, which was like a year, so you know, anything less than that would be an improvement, right? And that's still in my Harry Potter bag, and it still fits. I used the leftover yarn from my scarf, and then I've just joined a new ball of the maroon. So that is that, and then the new thing that I cast on is out of, oh sorry, I forgot to say what that is out of Cascade 220. And I think it's Maroon and Goldenrod. Maybe it's Burgundy and Goldenrod. I don't know, the names change sometimes. So yes, that's that, and I said with the first one. Okay, I'll get this eventually. And this is out of Lorna's Laces Shepherd's Sock in Summer Serenity, which is these gorgeous blues and greens and a little bit of tan and some cream. And if you follow me on Instagram, this is the yarn that you saw in that picture. Megan Williams, one of the hosts of the Stockinette Zombies, was hosting or having an Instagram giveaway where she said the first 30 people to post a picture of the yarn that they would use to knit her new shawl, the cool Clavicle cover, would win a copy of the pattern. So I happened to be on Instagram at the right time and post a picture of this yarn, which I've had caked up for a while, thinking that I would find something to knit with it, and I hadn't quite found the right thing because it's this highly variegated yarn, and I didn't really want to put it on my feet. And so this is perfect, and it's already caked up and ready to go. So I was one of the lucky ones who got the pattern, so thank you, Megan. I'm very excited, and I have been knitting like crazy on this thing. So this is what it looks like, and it's really pretty in this yarn. This pattern is great for variegated yarn, let me tell you, because it's really hard. Sorry for the shaking, it's the cat. It's really hard to find shawl patterns for variegated yarn, and this one shows it off really well. Because I realized I don't have a lot of semi-solid or solid colored fingering weight yarns, and I have all these shawl patterns that I want to knit that would do a lot better in semi-solid or solid colored yarn. So I'm very happy with this. The textured, or the textured part with the slip stitches is really what shows off the variegation. And then there's these little, like, it's written in sections, and there's this stitch in between these textured stitches, and it looks really cool, but it takes a really long time. We were at a friend's house yesterday, and we were watching The Legend of Korra, which is an awesome show if you haven't ever seen it. And it took me an entire episode to do one row, and they're like half an hour. So it's a little time consuming, but the effect is really cool. At first I thought I was doing it wrong, because I was like, it's taking so long, but I won't give away what it is because it is a pay for pattern. But alright, cat, I'm gonna push you off. Bye bye, Pan. There we go. Pushed him off the back of the table. It's okay, he found a chair. But totally worth it. So I did have to, it has to do with passing a stitch over, and I had a hard time doing it with these because I'm using my Addi Turbos, which are not very pointy. as you probably know if you've seen Addy Turbos before. So I'm using I have a random size 1 DPN that I'm using to pass the slip stitch over, and it's working out much better. Oh, so that is coming along, and those are really the 3 things that I have on the island right now. Let me stick this back in its bag. And it's living in this bag, which kind of matches it, which I like. And that's it for on the island. I have one thing that has set sail, which are my Amey Pond mitts. Does it ever bother you that your life doesn't make sense? And that pattern is by Jennifer Amey. And this is out of Knit Picks palette in Serrano. Sorry, I'm trying to put them on. And I wove in the ends, but I haven't cut them yet, so they're kind of all like hanging out wherever. Oh, come on. So, ta-da! And that's pretty accurate. It's a little more red than it's coming out on screen. It's looking a little orange. But they are very red. And they're very cool looking. I just realized I bound off this hand on the top knit-wise, and I did this side purl-wise. And I like the purl one better, so I may have to rip this one out and redo the bind off. I had forgotten about that. But this is a stitch pattern based on the Tilting TARDIS cowl. And you can kind of see there's some, tilting TARDISes, which is really cool the way it's done. It's a free pattern, so you can go look it up. But it's really cool the way that they get the TARDISes to tilt back and forth on top of each other. It's very cool. I'm liking it. That cowl has been in my queue for a while, or in my favorites. Sometimes I use my favorites as a queue, and I put things in. So that's it for set sail. I guess we'll transition to. I guess it's kind of the way I do my on the horizon from my Holly. But the way I use my favorites and queue on Ravelry is that when I like a pattern, I put it in my favorites, and it's one that I plan on knitting, and then I keep my queue pretty short. It's usually like a page or 2, if that. I think it's down to a page right now. And I put in it things that I plan on knitting, or that I want to knit or need to knit for whatever reason in the near future. So it's not a long-term queue. It's more of a, if I want to cast something on, I go look in my queue, and it's, the next 5 things there. I don't have to look through pages. So that's kind of how I use my favorites in queue. The favorites is things that I do plan on knitting eventually, and the queue is more of like things I plan on knitting right away. Sometimes things stay in the bottom of the queue that I don't really plan on knitting right away for whatever reason. Either I never get to them, or they're not as urgent, or other things come up, so that sometimes happens. Questions that you guys have been asking are great. So I guess we'll transition to flora and fauna. Someone asked in the Ravelry group, what is my favorite time of day to knit? Which I think is an excellent question. And I've been thinking about it ever since I read it. I don't know if I have a really good answer. I guess I'd have to say in the evenings, often when watching TV. We don't really have TV, we watch Netflix. We don't have cable. Or during meetings at work. I do like to knit during meetings, or during my lunchtime, either outside in the sun or inside sitting near a window. I do have, my office is right next to a window, so it's not like I don't have a window. I just don't look toward the window. I have the window here, and I'm kind of facing that way. So just the way I have my desk set up, I could turn it the other way. but I like to see what's going on in the rest of the office rather than what's going on outside, because I don't like it when people sneak up on my desk. So I have it set up so that I'm facing the rest of the office, and because I'm like, only birds can sneak up to me that way. I don't really care about them. So enough about that. I guess my favorite time of the day to knit is whenever I can. I am a morning person. I do get up fairly early in the morning. I like to have my time. And mostly I spend that eating breakfast, sometimes petting the cat. I just like to take my time in the morning. I find that if I wake up with more than enough time to get ready, I find myself less stressed out and less rushed during the day, and I tend to not forget things. If I'm really rushed, I might forget my lunch, or I might forget, something that I was supposed to bring to work or whatever. Or I'll forget my sunglasses or something like that. And so I find that I like to have more time in the morning. I don't necessarily make time to knit in the morning, just because if I'm ready early, I often will, do some cleaning or put stuff away, or sometimes just go into work early if I have stuff to do. So it's kind of my morning. I mostly knit in the evenings or during my lunch time at work. So that's really when I knit a lot. Alright, flora and fauna. Someone in the Ravelry board asked a question about sock yarn. She's a new sock knitter and wanted some advice on, yardage and yarn blends and things like that. So I thought I'd give a few pointers about how I choose sock yarn. The first thing that I learned is that animal fibers work much better than plant fibers, just because of their stretchiness. You'll notice when working with wool that it has a certain bounce factor. I have this in my lap, but there's a certain stretchiness to it, whereas with plant fibers like cotton or bamboo or linen, the way it is the way it is. There's no bounce back. It's just kind of taut. And that's fine for a certain type of fabric, but if you want something that's squishy and retains its shape and bounces back more, wool is the way to go. The other important thing about yarn blends is to have nylon in it. This is what gives it its strength and helps it wear better. There are certain wool blends that are more hardy than others. Like BFL tends to be more hardy than a merino per se, because a merino is a fine wool. But having nylon in your sock yarn is very important if you don't want to get holes, especially if you're hard on your socks. I don't tend to be hard on my socks, so I can get away with a low nylon content, but having at least 20% is a good idea. Another thing I guess it's up to each person in terms of needle size. I use a size 1, which tends to give me a fairly tight gauge. If you're a looser knitter, you might want to go down to a 0, or if you're a really tight knitter, you might want to go up to a 1.5 or a 2. It kind of depends on your gauge. And also DPNs versus magic loop, that's up to you. I did do an episode where I talk about how I knit socks, so if you want to know more about how I learned to knit socks, you can go watch that. The other question she had was about yardage. Most fingering weight skeins come at about 400 to 420 yards, which is plenty to make socks, a pair of socks, even men's socks. Through experience, I've noticed that each sock takes about 200, usually less. I can get away with knitting a pair of socks. For me, I have size 7 feet out of 395 yards, and I usually still have some left over. With my husband's socks, and he has a pretty normal average dude feet size, I usually like to get at least 400, 420. It also depends on how long you like the leg. If you like a longer leg, you might want a little more yardage. If you like short socks, then you don't need as much. It's always better to have more than you need, but one skein of fingering weight is generally enough to make a pair of socks, unless you have gigantic feet, which most people do not. Those are my main pointers about socks. Experiment a little bit. That's what I did when I learned. I just went to a local yarn store and I said, I want to learn how to knit socks. What yarn do you recommend? And she pointed me toward a lovely skein of Ella Ray lace merino, which is a fingering. It's a light fingering. I wouldn't recommend starting with a light fingering, but I loved it. It was very soft and very squishy, and I still have those socks and I wear them all the time. With toe up and cuff down, it kind of depends on your preference. As I have said before, like toe up just because I don't worry so much about running out of yarn, and not like I'm going to. Now that I know a little bit more about knitting socks, I've learned that one skein is plenty and I'm not going to run out of yarn. But I like to try them on as I go and see where to turn the heel. I also, as I mentioned, I think last episode, I don't like the way my toe decreases look when I do top down. It's just a personal preference, so it may be different for you than it is for me. It is the way it is. My advice is experiment a little bit. Talk to someone who's local to you if you can. If you have a local yarn store, go in and say, what do you recommend as far as socks go? The other thing to do is find a pattern that you really like on Ravelry in terms of socks, and see the most popular yarn that people are knitting it with. Certain people like certain types of yarns. It's up to you. Oh, one more thing I wanted to talk about is plies in yarn. Fiber content is important, but also plies. Single ply yarn is not good for socks just because of the way it wears and it's not as strong. 2-ply yarn is better. 3-ply yarn is the best. 4-ply yarn is good as well, and whatever up from there. But what I've heard from other people, what I've learned, is that 3-ply yarn, the way it lays against each other, is ideal for socks. Don't take my word on that. I'm not entirely sure that's entirely correct. I'm 98% sure that's correct. But do a little bit of research, and I hope that I've helped that research in some way. And if you have any more questions, feel free to ask them on the Ravelry board. And before I ramble on too much more about that, I will say goodnight and have a great week, and post your things of your knitted in your favorite color, because next time we record I'm going to pull a winner for that. I'm not sure what the contest is going to be for August, but I'll figure it out for next week. Alright, see you guys later. Bye!